right, hello everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diarist podcast, a show on the human stories behind indie game development. This is your loyal Indie Diarist and host, Anthony L. Wolf, and this is Indie Diary number 72 with Clumsy Bear Studio. Now, I reached out to Clumsy Bear Studio and its founder on Threads after seeing Hungry Horse, which is a beautiful little roguelike deck builder with a very unique concept, which I'll let you explore as we dive into the episode. But before we do that, I want to shout out to my amazing patrons for Zagini, Fishbump Dev, and Pelig. You guys are a rock of this project. You support me every single month. I couldn't be prouder to have you as my patrons. Thank you so much for your support. And listeners, you can support me too and get these beautiful shout outs at the beginning of the episode. You just have to go to patreon.com/theindiediarist and check out my amazing tiers, which start from as little as £1.25 per month and include access to episodes in advance, uncut versions of the episodes on video, and a lot more. But now let's get into Indie Diary number 72 with Clumsy Bear Studio. All right, hello everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diaries podcast. Today with me is, you're going to have to help me with pronouncing your name, obviously. I don't want to butcher it, but he's a guest that I reached out to thanks to a Threads post. You're working on a beautiful little game that you're going to have the chance to talk about, but please say a few things about yourself, introduce yourself, and say where you're based, what you're working on right now, and all that jazz.
Hey everybody, so my name is Jerzy, but since I'm living in UK, everybody calls me Jerzy, so that's kind of the name I got stuck with. And I'm one of two creators of the game Hungry Horrors. This is our baby that we are working on.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and Hungry Horrors is delightful. I've tried the demo. I was just telling... I don't want to call you Jerzy.
No, feel free to do it because that's what everybody does.
All right. I'll just call you Jerzy. I'm sure it will come up just 2 times during the course of this episode anyway, so no longer than that. But yeah, Hungry Horse is delightful. We'll have a chance to talk about the game later on. But before we move on, as you know, we have a little... icebreaker segment, which I call a prologue, because these are indie diaries. I like to treat them as little memoirs and little diaries indeed, so little journals. So now I'm going to start a timer if that's going to last about 60 seconds, and I'm going to ask you as many questions as we possibly can in those 60 seconds. So are you ready?
Yeah, I hope so.
Perfect. And let's start with, what's the first game you ever fell in love with?
I think it was Gauntlet. It was very, very old RPG. I think like on Atari or Amiga or something like this.
I've heard of that, yeah. And if you could play only one genre for the rest of your life, what would it be?
RPG.
Do you have a guilty pleasure game?
At some point, cozy games were my guilty pleasure.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
But okay. I would say recently things like Balatro, just to kill the time.
Love it. Okay. Pitch your game in one sentence.
Feed monsters before they feed on you. That's
beautiful.
The pitch for our game.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, we are at time. I think we covered most of the questions. There were some more silly ones about your favorite gaming snack, something on pineapple on pizza, but we'll get to that as we do.
No to pineapple on pizza.
You're the first one who says no in like 5 episodes. So finally, someone, as an Italian, I do appreciate that. So yeah, well, thank you for your love there. But right now we can actually relax. We can dive into your story as a game developer, as a gamer, first of all. And as I mentioned, these episodes are more like indie diaries. So they're like journals, memoirs, if you want. So let's start from the beginning. So I'm curious, like, you mentioned Gauntlet, of course, but what is your earliest memory that has to do with video games? Was it around that era?
Yeah, around this era. So I would say it was Atari, and it was when the games were still on cassettes, and you could actually code the games in BASIC, in the coding language. Mm-hmm. I was very, very, very young because I didn't even understand what coding was. I just understood you had to type those letters and numbers and press enter, and sometimes the game will happen. And Yeah, and it was the best part of it. Was the best part. There was no saves because there was no memory on Atari,
Hmm.
so you could just play it like till the end if you were able to, and when you finish, you could start from the beginning.
Oh, that reminds me of some obscure game that I played on PS1, which was a game about Mickey's Wild Adventure. And that was the era where still some games didn't have memory cards, like in the very
Yeah,
early stages. So that I think that was the first game that I played like properly on a console that was mine. And that one didn't have saves, so you had to run through the entire game from the beginning to end. And it was pretty tough for a kid to do an actual platformer like that one. So yeah, I get exactly the feeling there. And do you think that those early games that you used to play are they influencing the kind of stuff that you're doing now? Do they have an creative influence on you?
definitely. I was even thinking about it. Like, well, that Atari was like very, very early, so I was very small. But the first proper games when I was already playing games, it was PC, and I was always like, PC boy who will play games on the PC. And one of the first games I remember playing on the PC was Mortal Kombat 2,
Hmm.
exactly, which I played with my sister, which I think my sister was at this point maybe 5 years old and I was nine or something like this. But yeah, the perfect game to play for kids.
Yeah,
And
a soft game to play
soft
with your
games. At this
young
point,
sister.
nobody knew that there are games that not all kids should play, but we turn out fine, so it's fine. But I think that's one of the things that appears in our game right now. It's fatality. So there's different ways that princess can die, and that's
Yeah.
kinda influenced by Mortal Kombat.
Right. Yeah. Well, of course. I mean, I've seen some of it during the demo, but yeah, no, pretty interesting. Well, I mean, I say that it's a soft game to play with a 5-year-old, but I picked up GTA Vice City when I was 8, so I don't think I'm the best person to say that. Right, but as I always say that there's this moment when someone realizes that their hobby, they love it so much that they want to become a creator, maybe if they have the creative vein. So in your case, when did you realize you wanted to make the switch from being a gamer to actually making games? Was there like a specific moment that triggered that?
Yeah, so it's not actually that simple. I was working as a web developer, and then
Hmm.
I got into. I was working social media as a web developer, and
Hmm.
that's when the Pokemon Go came out and augmented reality started becoming a thing. So
Hmm.
I got really into AR. I was very interested in augmented reality and start doing lots of things with it. And then kind of when my career went this way, I was working with clients, I was creating AR effects for them, and many of those more complex effects were like games, mini games in AR, in 3D space, etc. And my partner who I work with now, it's a programmer from many, many, many years. It was his dream to one day to make a proper game. He made like some apps, but like a proper game.
Hmm.
So this kind of collide that at the moment we both kind of finish our contracts in similar times in tech. We're like, okay, let's try to do it this time and make the proper game.
Yeah, well, I mean, it does happen sometimes. Sometimes it's just people who suddenly realize, oh, you know what, I'm stuck in this job. I don't really like it. I want to learn a new skill and do games. But sometimes it's people who are already working in development like you, and maybe they want to make the jump, and they just learned those transferable skills, and then there you go. You got Hungry Horrors, which we'll get to. Um,
I think there was a case as well of like things aligning. So it was like,
yeah.
if not now, then when? Because later
Mm,
on might be too late, etc. And
yeah,
it was
yeah.
this moment that the contracts, we had time, we save up some money. So it's like, let's not enough money, but we thought it was enough and we thought
Okay.
we had enough time. So yeah, and just those things aligned together, I think.
Right. Yeah. Well, no, it makes sense. I mean, sometimes I've heard those stories as well. Like some people just, things just align. You are out with friends, like a group of friends, and you all talk and start talking about games, and you're like, oh yeah, what if we make a game? And then suddenly you are all in a studio together, just trying to make your dream game. But that's always very fascinating to hear. And yeah, well, of course, I mean, you've been a web developer, I suppose, for how long?
Oh, I'm not that long. I would say maybe, oh God, 9, 10 years.
9, 10 years.
But
Okay.
but my partner has like 20 years programming experience, so he's the main programmer on this game. I'm just doing everything around it, so he wouldn't even allow me to touch the code properly right now. So like I can code the side things like websites or things like this, but
Perfect. Okay.
yeah, we have very division of who is doing which job and not touching each other.
Yeah, and who's looking after the art of you two?
He is also doing the art, so he's doing the pixel art and he's doing programming, and I'm doing the game design and the lore and writing and marketing and all everything that's
Amazing.
not those two things.
Yeah, amazing. Good combination there too. And also the pixel art is so delightful. I really loved the style. I loved the characters and just how smooth everything feels. How crisp everything feels. I think it really nailed the style there.
I'm glad we said it feel crisp because we spent a lot of time making it look crisp, and
Great.
it was a
It
challenge, I
shows.
would say.
It shows. It shows. It's very. It feels very nice to watch and to play. So a very nice experience all in all. And I mean, of course, you've developed things for quite a long time. You've worked on Hungry Horse for a while. What's a big development challenge that you think you've overcome in all this time? And how do you think it's changed your way to make games going forward? Could be a game
Honestly,
design challenge too.
it's every week it's a new development challenge. Every day is a new development challenge. I think the biggest challenge is that we underestimate, as typical story that everybody says who does it first time, we underestimate not even a scope, which is completely different story because we want to make more than possible, but we underestimate that our knowledge and like we do have experience in what like I'm saying like my partner worked in many tech companies and other companies for like 20 years as a developer, and I had lots of creative strategy experience and creative experience, and but those are transferable skills, but not fully. And
Mm-hmm.
even making before, like I would call it always like gaming experiences that we're making for different brands, usually like gaming advertisement, etc., mini games you learn skills, for example, that I think not many other developers have. So you learn being very precise with what you do. So like, everything has to be perfect because you know that those companies are not going to look into how it does it play. Nobody will actually play their game. They will just look if it's all on brand. So they will look
Uh-huh.
paying attention to fonts and all those kind of
Mm-hmm.
things. So you learn of like those kind of guidelines, but there's so much we didn't learn. Even like last big challenge was the translation. So we just throw in some translations into the demo just to see how it's gonna work before we do it for the full game. Because like to test even we're supposed to test it only with Polish. Then it was like, okay, let's add some Asian fonts. So we test them and then ended up with 9 languages. But it's even that I used to work, for example, for a big travel company, and they had website. I remember we were doing sometimes apps in like 25 languages. So I knew that, for example, German words can be that long, and everything has to be set like the whole UI have to change because when you have to introduce other languages, and also being
Interesting.
Polish, I know that you can have one word in English for the noun, verb, and adjective, but in Polish there's going to be 20 different ways of saying it. So there is now, for example, genders in verbs in English. So
Mm-hmm.
you start
I
with
get that.
all of
Uh-huh.
this, yeah.
It's not a
So
flexive language like Italian or Spanish and such. So yeah, you did. That's
exactly.
another challenge for other languages. Yeah.
So then you start thinking from this perspective. Even if I had lots of experience with it, it's just not on this scale. So suddenly we're just sitting and there's still lots of mistakes, but it took way longer than we
Mm-hmm.
hoped. Like every second week, there is some small thing. It's like, oh, let's just do this. And then it's ending up being this massive, massive change. So it's hard to say now what was the biggest because every single week it's something new.
It's good. It's a good answer though, and I think you raise an important point that I haven't heard before, like the challenge of localization and also how UI changes based on languages. It's not something I've personally thought about because I'm not a web developer. But now that you make me think about it, yeah, it is. It is actually different languages have different word lengths or different ways to. Even I'm Italian. Even between Italian and English, Italian is a wildly more verbose language where you have a lot more words to say the same thing. whereas English is a lot more concise and compact. So yeah, I do get the challenge. That's interesting, and it's definitely something interesting that my listeners will relate to if they are trying to translate a game into different and localize it for different markets. So yeah, but let's dive into Hungry Horrors now. First of all, I'm curious. Like your studio name is Clumsy Bear Studio. Where did that name come from?
Um, I, I think I don't know. We are looking for the animal. Always love bears, and my partner is clumsy, so kind of ended up this way. But
Perfect.
it was I think one of those things. But yeah. We were just like looking for the animal to add, and there was also like, yeah, I don't think there was a bigger thought behind it. It was just combining those two
It
things.
sounds good though, like Clumsy Bear Studio. It sounds pretty cool, pretty good. So I think you nailed the name there. But now about Hungry Horrors, like of course the concept is beautiful and funny. I played the demo as I mentioned at the beginning. It's and from the perspective of someone who played the demo, and for listeners who are more curious, it's basically this deck builder roguelike game. Correct me if I say anything stupid at some point. Where you use recipes and meals to fight monsters essentially. So monsters have a hunger bar, they have cravings and such, and so you combine your recipes to try and stay and fend them off. And if they get too close, the princess dies a horrible death. This was a very cute cat that accompanies you throughout the game, or at least in the demo. So the concept itself is super interesting, super beautiful, and super funny as well. Where did it come from? Where did the idea for this game come from?
I think it's a mixture of few things. So one was we were originally making different game, which as it's also the story of many other people. And
Uh-huh.
after 3 months, we decided, well, the scope of the other game was ended up being like, I don't know, Minecraft or something like this. Like
Right.
this is gonna take years to make. And it's like, okay, we don't have that much time. So that's the easier idea, which it's not easy at all. But the idea come from, I don't remember which conversation was, but I remember asking like, why do we have to kill the monsters?
Mm,
Why is even cozy games? If you look at Stardew Valley, you have to kill
you have
things.
to kill
You in
monsters,
every
yeah.
single game you have to kill things. So we were like, why do we have to kill? What else we can do? And then we come up with like, oh, what if we're gonna feed them? And so that was mixing those two things together. And then my partner loves pixel art. He's very into pixel art, and that's his style. And I'm very into mythology and folklore. And I was thinking to make it easier for us, like technically easier. I know that if you when they're like good writers, they set first the word and then they write in this word, because you have to have this base that you are always going back to, so that things don't become unrealistic and make no sense. And I was like, well, we can set the word in. I was like, why don't we just bring like British and Irish living in UK,
Hmm.
British and Irish culture and folklore, because it's not something that's very often mentioned. Yes, there's millions of spin-offs of Tolkien books and Lord of the Rings and elves and dwarves as Tolkien described it, which is more, he was taking more from Germanic actually cultures and Nordic, but there's not many dive into the monster of the British Isles. So
Hmm.
that was mixture of those things together.
Hmm. I like that because I've always been a fan of mythology and folk culture and such, and I think that of course, being Polish, the series, but I think The Witcher does that very well, just pulling from different types of folklore and pulling them all into the game with all those different monsters and such. Of course, there's a lot of Polish culture in there, but I think there's a lot more from other parts of Europe as well, and maybe not just
Yeah,
Europe.
it's lots
Um,
of Slav. It's basically all the Slavic culture
yeah,
mixed
exactly.
together. I grew up on Witcher.
Yeah.
It's like, for me, The Witcher was like Harry Potter for different
Yeah,
generation.
no, I
The
heard that.
books were
Yeah.
coming out when I was growing
Uh-huh.
up, so also
I
were
heard
way too
that.
young to read them. But that's a different story.
I heard that from like a couple of jobs ago. I used to work for a website that dealt with the creative industries, and there was a Polish illustrator, and we met at some point in London. And he said that basically The Witcher for you guys is like Lord of the Rings, like your Sapkowski is your Tolkien, basically. So you grow up
At
with The
least for
Witcher.
my generation, I
Yeah.
I appreciate that for like generation maybe of my grandparents and maybe even my parents is not because he's their age, so they didn't grow up on it.
Uh-huh.
But he started, I think, releasing stories in like 80s, but the books started coming out end of 90s, beginning of 2000s. Something definitely somewhere in 90s. So this generation grew up on those
Yeah.
books.
And so I mean, the concept of Hungry Horse is super fascinating. I think it's quite unique in itself. What if we feed the monsters? Why do we have to kill them? Is a very Undertale question to ask, which I which I really appreciate. So yeah, and well, now I'm curious. I mean, you've had people play the demo, supposedly. You've spoken to people who played the demo. What would you say is one of the most memorable reactions someone has had to Hungry Horrors?
There's two actually that come to my mind. One
Uh huh.
is there is lots of people coming and saying that they don't play deck builders, they don't really like those kind of games, but they like Hungry Horrors, which it's something we really appreciate because we want to make it easy to enter this world. When I find that there's lots of deck builders, I switch on and I get bored after like 10 minutes because just too many rules and too much explained on the beginning. Second thing, there was somebody, just wrote a comment under somebody's YouTube video playing Hungry Horrors that this person described that like we did our homework and that really made me happy, like finding all those little things that I was spending time, like the name of the cauldron, that where it's come from. This person knew it, like knew Irish mythology enough to knowing that those every element is actually from somewhere, it's not just made up, and that made me really, really happy because those weeks finding all this lore, it's not wasted.
Nice. Yeah, no, I mean, it must feel very good to read those comments and be like, oh yeah, all those hours spent doing research, they're actually paying off. And it's nice that someone said, oh yeah, we don't usually like deck builders, but Hungry Horrors is special. And I feel kind of the same. I don't usually play deck builders. I can see myself playing Hungry Horrors because it has a bit of a Darkest Dungeon to it, a bit of a lot of different things that I personally like. So yeah, I think it is very, very special in his own unique way.
Thank you.
Oh, no worries. And well, you worked on the story. You mentioned all the game design and such. What is one? I mean, I feel like this question is an easy answer, but what is one mechanic or a story element, something that you're particularly proud of from Hungry Horrors?
I think the one that changed everything was actually my partner who added it, was the cravings. That when the game start feeling that it stopped feeling like, okay, it's a Slay the Spire kind of esque game, and start feeling like this is something ours. So I think the craving system was the one that particularly right now is the main one. But there's a few other coming in that we
Mm-hmm.
want to mix in and see how they work.
I would agree. I mean, the craving system is what gives it polish. Like otherwise, it would be okay. Interesting concept that you send meals to monsters and you try to make them work. It's a little strategic, but the cravings add that little bit of tactics to it, that little bit of strategy. Because at that point, to maximize the effect of your meals, you just have to see what the monster wants and try to build your deck according to it. So I think it does add an interesting layer to the gameplay, and it is a really good, well thought out feature that gives it depth in a way. So it doesn't stop at a superficial level of having to feed monsters. These monsters have their own cravings, and it's not just churning out food for the sake of churning out food. So yeah, good thought there. And well, we are nearly approaching the end. So these episodes typically last between 30 minutes to 40, depending on the guest. So I have a couple more questions for you and then we can wrap up. But this is the heart of the Indie Diaries. This is the question that I ask everybody and they're always looking forward to the answer. Why are you a game developer in the first place? What drives you forward?
Because I'm delusional. That's literally an answer. Like, ask me in a year or two if we know if we succeeded or not. Because right now it literally feels like it's a delusion that we thought it. Oh, let's waste a lot of money and a lot of time on something that nobody is gonna want to play. So right now, I don't know. It's like spending all the money on the lottery tickets and thinking that you might get one that will give you at least £5 back. But I think, except this, from me personally, for I know for my partner was always like he wanted to do it. He wanted to make something of his own and kind of tired for working for others. For me, it's something different. I always wanted to like tell the story and tell stories, but I never could find a medium that I would feel comfortable in. So I was like, well, gaming is very interesting way of telling stories because you don't have, it's not like you make a movie that you say one thing and it goes in the linear way, and also you can change things. If you really something you don't really like it, how it pans out, you can go and tweak it. It's not permanent. It's more flexible, and I thought, why not?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's a very interesting art, game design and game programming in general. But I do relate with the sentiment that it's something that some people may define delusional because of it's basically a bet, isn't it? It's a bet on your dream. But who knows? Maybe Hungry Horrors will give you enough revenue to do that other game that you scrapped because it was completely out of scope and it was basically a Minecraft scope kind of thing. That's always the goal, isn't it? And what would you say so far has been the most difficult part of this journey, like developing Hungry Horrors, but also setting up a studio together? Sure, that must have come with its challenges.
Oh yeah, well, I think that the hardest one right now in general is the financial side of all of it. It's like there is just living in, well, so we were living first in UK, then we were traveling around Asia for some time to save money. Then we came back to Europe, and just living, the cost of living in Europe, just a normal going to the shop to buy food, it's just ends up to, you don't look at it that much when you have a good tech job, and then when you suddenly don't earn money and you're just spending it all on living, it's like I don't want all the cost of the game just going for food shopping. It's a bit insane. And then all the other things. So everybody is like, oh, you can just join this, and this will give you like exposure. That will give you exposure. Oh, here is this costs only like £2,000, so this costs only £10,000. Like that assumes they are operating in. It's not. I don't know how they think that self-funded indie studios have those kind of money. It's like double A studios, fine, but indies, I just don't understand. Even if you are lucky to get a grant or something like this, those grants are not massive. There may be like 20k, 30k. That like
in this economy, they don't.
Yeah, you can make a prototype, but what, two people are not going to live anywhere in Europe for 20k for a year. That's be honest.
In this economy, it's impossible. I mean, I live in London. Just let me tell you, things here are pretty dire right now. I'm lucky enough to have a full-time job that pays well and such, but even being a content director in living alone in London, it is a stretch sometimes.
Yeah, just a flat in London. That's more than 20k for a year.
Yeah. No, definitely, way more than that. So, yeah, absolutely. But I mean, Hungry Horrors, I can see the potential of the game. I can see that that is a lot of passion and polish being put, well, pun not intended, being put into it, and I'm sure it's going to do just fine, especially given how polished already the demo feels. So maybe with maybe a Steam Next Fest here and there, maybe some little showcases, you might get a good amount of wish lists and just get it off the ground. So yeah, now we are at the last question, I suppose. And as I mentioned several times during the course of this episode, this is like a memoir, this is like a journal. So imagine if this were your final diary entry, if this episode were your last message to the world, what's one thing that you would leave for other developers or players? I'll leave the choice to you.
For the players, I would say to be a little bit kinder to the developers. I watched recently all those showcases because there's a summer of showcases right now, and the comments on the live feeds are just insane. It's just like so rude and so full of hate and just like going after the developers. And it's just the problem of the game or AAA studios is not developers. So we
Absolutely.
could
And
talk about the, who
it's the
owns those
producers.
studios. Yeah, it's the people who trying to squeeze as much money from it as possible, but it's not the developers. So that's the one thing. When it comes to and also like if you don't like the game, don't play it. There is millions of other games out there, and there is millions of indie games that they are really really good. So you don't have to just play the same studio's game over and over
Hmm.
again. When it comes to developers, I don't know. It's hard to give advice when you're not yet established enough to be like, oh, I have a success. But based on our already mistakes, it's like learn to scope it better, learn to say no to yourself, or at least being able to put things that are the most important and then prioritize those because there is going to be always unpredicted things happening that will delay you.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think you said something really important about players, developers, of course, the scope and planning ahead, but for players, I see that too. Like chats on Twitch or YouTube, whenever there's a showcase, it's insane the amount of players who just hate on a game and say lame or this that, and they hate on the developers and whatnot. Why? Like it's such a fun hobby. Why do you have to take sides that way? And even then, as you say, usually it's not even the developers' fault who are trying to do something that they love. It's maybe pressures from investors or the board or producers or the publishers themselves. So why hate on the devs? They're the wrong people to hate on in that case.
Yeah,
Um,
I always say like I don't, for example, play FIFA games, but I
uh-huh,
don't spend my time going to, FIFA forums and writing negative comments about FIFA
exactly. Yeah.
games. I just don't
Just don't
spend
play.
money on it. Yeah, it's it. Like just don't put money there. I understand different if you buy the game and you don't like it, and well, it's not don't like it. That's stupid as well. But if it's broken, etc., on release, that's a different story. But if you just see game being announced and you already decided it's like you're gonna hate on it, it's just find, better things in life to do.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I mean, I don't play FIFA either, but I know that its problems are definitely not the developers. It's probably EA. So, but I still don't go around hating on FIFA. I'm like, okay, fine. If you want to play it, that's on you, not me. Um, but yeah, so well, thank you so much for your time, Jerzy. And last time I'm going to call you that way. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for agreeing to be on the show. I think Hungry Horrors is a little pearl, just needs to be discovered more. But I'm sure you're doing your own things behind the scenes, and I'm sure that more people are going to find it as it evolves and as it gets closer to the release date. I think it's time for some parting words. Where can other people find you? And if they do, what is the best way to support you right now?
The best way is just to try the demo. The demo is available on itch and on Steam. And after you play the demo, the best way to support is to leave the review, comment, share it, send the feedback. We accept a lot of feedback. We're happy with any kind of feedback. And so this is I think, obviously wish list as well, if you can. Yeah, and they can find us on pretty much every social media channel. Unfortunately, I decided to start all of them, and now there is way too many. But I think the main one is like Blue Sky, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. That's where I mostly will spend time on, and just different variations of Hungry Horrors handle, because sometimes were weirdly some of them taken, but Hungry Horrors game is usually the one, or Clumsy Bear Studio.
Okay, perfect. And of course, I will put all of these links in the description of the episode so people can find you and try out Hungry Horrors. But also, the when you play, well, you have a Discord server, of course, where you welcome feedback and such. You can find a link to it probably on your website, but also on when you try the demo, there's like a big pop-up that sends you there, so you can find it there too if you have feedback for the team. Of course, I'm sure they do want to hear it. But yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure having you on the show and wishing you all the best for Hungry Horrors.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
All right, and that's a wrap on another episode of the Indie Diarist, episode number 72 with Jerzy. I did say your name correctly, I hope, at the end. Thank you so much for your time, man. It's been beautiful having you on the show and discussing all the things that we talked about, from respecting developers to, your path into game dev. That was such a lovely chat. Thanks again, and all the best for Hungry Horrors. Now, listeners, if you enjoyed the episode, please support Jerzy and his team and what they're doing. Hungry Horrors is such a delightful little roguelike deck builder, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it if you like either genre or both. So please check it out. You'll find the links in the description of the episode. You can also support the show by following other links that I've put in the description of the episode, from joining the Discord to say hi, or following me on social media, or checking out my Patreon, leaving a donation. There are a lot of ways, and this is a listener-supported show, so the more, the better, so to speak. Every little thing does help. Now, please check out the YouTube channel, the Indie Diarist on YouTube, where I upload clips from the episode, so you can see my guests in the flesh. But of course, if you want to see them in the flesh even more, you can check out my Patreon tiers, because one of them does offer uncut video episodes, the entire archive. After a certain point, I think after episode 7 or something, I started uploading the video versions there, and they're just uncut, unedited versions of the Indie Diarist. Lastly, if you're an indie game developer yourself, please get in touch, because I would love to tell your story to the world, just like I did with Jerzy, and because I have one simple rule for the Indie Diarist: never say no to anyone. Speak to you next time.